sleepless night at the shadow. Visualize it, I got you something to do. Kush kush wherever we go. Visualize it, I'll give you something to do. To get a wildfire burning. Visualize it, I'll give you something to do. All in. Visualize it, I'll give you something to do. Spread it like a peanut butter jelly. Do it like I owe you some money. Spread it like a peanut butter jelly. Do it like I owe you some money. Money, 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 money.
Ghostwriter, peanut butter jelly. That's an interesting choice.
One of my favorites, certainly.
Well, that's a good reason. It didn't connect to the speech or the conversation.
No, not at all. Just one of those types of things I love to listen to when my head's buried in a computer.
You could be probably the person who's come from the furthest distance away, Zimbabwe. Tell me about it.
Yes, a small country in the southern part of Africa.
Going through some issues too.
Yeah, different kinds of problems. And thankfully we solve different kinds of problems out here. Some similar, some change in degree, not kind, but far more interesting out in the first world here.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't compare the society, you can't compare the surroundings. It's a completely different life.
Completely different.
And you're happy here? I mean, where you're based. You're not based here, but you're based in London, but you're happy in Europe.
I like a new set of problems. We've been solving different problems.
He's a man who likes problems, guys. He's definitely the guy we need to tell us how to solve our problems.
Just to fix it, yeah.
So all problems are a challenge. You're happy with that?
Absolutely.
And you've got plenty in your work?
Yes, it's super busy at the moment. One of the industries I think that is poised to explode.
Sure.
If it's not already, seemingly. We're incredibly busy at the moment, and I think only going to get busier.
Aidan, please.
Thanks so much.
Do your best at persuading us.
Great, thank you everyone. And it's my absolute pleasure to be here on behalf of BeyondTrust today to speak to you all about privileged access management and why we believe this is the critical missing piece in your security strategy. To get us started on that today, I'm going to talk first about the threat landscape we face today. What are the problems our customers are facing and asking BeyondTrust to solve? Then I'm going to introduce what we've seen in the past 30 years across 20,000 customers, what we see as the top use cases for privileged account management, privileged access management. Then I'm going to dig into actually what is privileged access management, not the classical definition, but how it's been defined by a systems integrator, one of the largest in the world, that's Accenture, and how it fits into the greater umbrella that is identity and access management. Then I'm going to speak to the how. I'm going to introduce the 12 steps to mitigation for privileged access management. Whilst every customer has different and unique use cases, we've definitely seen a common thread of steps and requirements that each customer should apply. Finally, I'm going to wrap up the last couple of minutes, just introduce a little bit more who BeyondTrust is, why we are successful in the industry today, and some of our technology solutions to talk to. So just a show of hands, anyone who's heard this term infonomics? Not at all. Infonomics speaks to the value of data. Not the ones and zeros on a hard drive, but the actual value of data. When it's assembled as a file, when it's sold, when it's exchanged, when it's leveraged in a data lake internally. However it's used, it has value to a threat actor as well. They steal it, they sell it, they use it against us. Infonomics is really talking to the value of data. When we take a deeper look at the threat landscape we face today, we see the majority of attacks and breaches that occurred in 2018 were the result of a privileged attack vector. The row of companies in the bottom here were the largest. How were they having their privileged access compromised? Whether it was a credential that was left out in the open, shared with the wrong person, a weak password, brute forced, captured during a spraying attack, or even just a default password that was forgotten about and wasn't changed. However they're doing it, they're the result of compromise for all of these organizations. Once a breach occurs, we have an infonomics problem. That's why we're here today. Ultimately, that's why BeyondTrust exists. Looking at the real world statistics really just prove the problem. There's lots of fear and great big numbers up there, but the ones I want to point to in particular are the bottom right-hand two. 80% of breaches involve a privileged account being exploited. Privileged accounts are the access to control and to the data. 81% of breaches start with either a stolen or weak password. So how are the attackers doing this? They're really coming in from two sides, either inside a threat or an external threat. We know that only a third of attacks originate from the inside, the malicious user, Edwin Snowdens of the world. The majority of attacks are beginning from the outside, coming from the inside. However they're getting in, they need to gain privilege. Once again, to gain extra control, to gain access to additional data. There's only two sources they can use to gain privilege. That's a vulnerability and exploit combination, or gaining a privileged account, using a privileged account. However they're doing it, once they've done it, they laterally move inside the network, trying to steal more credentials, taking advantage of more vulnerabilities, looking for other misconfigurations until they find they can get hold of that data. And we're back to an infonomics problem. That's what we're trying to solve with privileged access management. We're trying to disrupt this attack chain at every step of the way. So what are the techniques they're using? These are them. And really just a show of hands, anyone who's reused a password in more than one place. And just to note, my hand's up as well. We all know better, right? It's hard. It's difficult. We think password managers are a lifesaver. They do solve part of the problem, certainly not all the problem. How do we remember all these passwords? Keep them, rotate, that is, keep changing them on a regular basis. How do we share them amongst other people who need them? Let's consider this problem for a business. A business has to protect thousands of different privileged accounts across thousands of different devices, keeping them all unique, keep them all changed after every use, one-time passwords. And that's just passwords. When we add SSH keys, certificates for secure communication into the mix, the problem exponentially grows. We all know the world of IT is changing and evolving. We all know the risks associated with IT evolving are growing exponentially in parallel. Gone are the days where an organization can take control and keep managing their passwords without the help of a system. We're not alone in this idea. These are the top 10 security projects for 2019 according to Gartner. Looking at the top 2 of those projects have remained the same for 2 years running. This was also 2018's top 2 projects. BeyondTrust solves both of those two. Whilst with individual components, we're unique in that we've provided tight integration to provide contextual privilege access management when it's gauged versus vulnerability. and making a decision on whether to elevate a task, to allow a person to log in, based on metrics and reputation versus vulnerability. Very important quote from a report Gartner did in January 2019. 90% of organizations will recognize that mitigation of PAM is a fundamental security control. That's as important as antivirus is today, as important as firewalls. It's a real opportunity here, certainly from a systems integrator point of view, but certainly from customers who can be ahead of the market. Let's look at the top 3 use cases. These are the top 3 use cases, again, that we've seen in our customers that are deploying privileged access management. Certainly the most. To be able to discover, manage, audit, and monitor privileged access anywhere. Quite a big problem. It may sound like a big problem. But we know now that attackers are trying to gain access to our privileged accounts. Our customers don't know where those privileged accounts are, and typically don't know who's using them, don't know when the password was last changed, and can't tie the use, particularly of shared privileged accounts, to the systems administrators that are using those shared accounts. We know that 80% of breaches involve a privileged account. We also know that the majority, higher than 80%, of malware is ineffective without local administrator rights in the system. And local admin rights is still part of privileged access management. Audit and compliance. Again, our customers lack a consolidated view into compliance data. Consolidated view of who's using accounts, where those accounts are, where they're being used, how often their passwords are being changed. They lack a consistent, repeatable process for ongoing audit cycles. And whenever they are gathering data for audits, this is typically time-consuming. Repetitive efforts they need to gauge or measure or report from disparate systems, all that take time and effort. Employees, vendors, and other insiders, these are third-party contractors, are often given access to systems and data. Talking about the local admin problem. As I said before, the majority of malware, the majority of compromise happens with that privileged account. We know what the problem to solve this is. Just give everyone standard user rights, right? Why don't we do that? It's hard. Things break. Users suddenly need to run applications that need admin rights. Rather than solve just the application's requirements, we give the user admin rights. Exposing ourselves, exposing our organizations to compromise, access and pathways to data, particularly if the access isn't controlled and tracked. BeyondTrust has a solution for this. We've been doing this for 30 years. We're one of the best experts in the market with 30 years across 20,000 organizations of solving just this problem. Let's elevate tasks, not users. Let's elevate tasks for as long as that task needs access, not elevate users. So what is privileged access management? According to Accenture, the largest systems integrator across the globe, privileged access management sits under the identity and access management umbrella. For those who can't see, bottom right-hand side there, small little box. Identity and access management really looks at other things. Data and platform connectors, access management, role management, identity of a person, entitlement of that person. When we break privileged access management out, we see that it involves 7 sub-disciplines inside there. Password storage is one little piece. And I hope we can see that password managers today only solve part of the problem. Password management, the rotation of passwords, one-time passwords, just-in-time passwords. Session management, that is recording a session that's being used and privileged, keystroke logging, who's used it, when they've used it, did they do what they said they were going to do? Privilege management. This is talking about least privilege on endpoints. Again, the ability to operate with standard user rights, only elevating tasks. Finally, systems integration. While PAM in its own provides enough functional value to any organization, when it can participate in a greater ecosystem that is identity and access management, we can see some real synergies. This is how BeyondTrust has adapted to this stack. Our password and session management tools cover password storage, password management, session management. Our least privileged tools directly attack the endpoint, allowing you to use standard user rights on Linux, Unix, Windows, or Mac, only elevating tasks that require that access for as long as they need access. And if we give them access, let's record it. Let's audit it. Let's tell the SIEM device that this access is being granted. Finally, our Inside platform provides a systems integration into ITSM devices, SIEM devices, identity and access, the PAM governance, and ultimately analytics and reporting. Again, this isn't a stack that we've created. This is how the industry itself defines privileged access management. Up to now, so we've talked about the why it's important, and we've talked about what privileged access management is. Now I'm going to walk through the 12 steps to mitigation, the how. How do we access, or how do we manage privileged access, rather? Step number 1 is critical regardless. It must be the first step to a journey of PAM, to achieving PAM. Steps 2 through 12 can be done in any order. They can be skipped. They can be reprioritized. Ultimately, it becomes a decision based on risk within that organization. It's relative to each and every different organization. Step number 1, let me repeat, has to be done. So what is step number 1? Privilege account discovery. And while this is step number 1, it's actually not just a step, it's an important ongoing process. It's an iterative process. Our estates, particularly that's our digital estates, are constantly changing. New accounts are being created. New systems are added to the network. We need to constantly be checking and discovering for new accounts, new assets, whether they be in the cloud, whether they be on-premise, whether they be IoT devices, wherever they can be. Develop permissions models. How do people consume those privileged accounts? If we know that that's the risk we need to protect, let's control how people access them. Let's rotate passwords and keys that are in line with the security policy. Just-in-time use. Change after every use. Implement workflow processes and auditing. The technology exists today to manage privileged access management. What lacks in a lot of organizations is actually the people and the process. We know that these are the gaps. Once again, this is what BeyondTrust is an expert at and helps most of our organizations through. Step number 1. Step number 2, the low-hanging fruit. We know that attackers are going after the endpoints. That's the weak spots. So let's address them. Once again, let's give people standard user rights. We have the tools to do that today. Elevate tasks, not users. Leverage application risk intelligence. This is a first for the market. BeyondTrust are very proud of doing this. Also referred to as vulnerability-based application management. We can make on-the-fly decisions on whether to elevate an application based on its reputation against vulnerability. And we can make other decisions as well. Should it be launched? Shouldn't it be launched? Should we take away admin rights from a vulnerable application? You know, hands up who runs Adobe Java on their computers? Do we know what version it is? Do we know if it's vulnerable? It's a difficult question to answer at the time. And what's trusted today and not vulnerable can be different tomorrow. a trusted application internally can quickly become untrusted overnight. How do we control that? Leverage application risk intelligence. We have the products in the marketplace today to do that. Implement least privilege in servers. No one should be logging on to a server as admin or root. Wow. One of those out there ideas. BeyondTrust has a product for that. Once again, allows standard users to log on using standard accounts, elevating only the privilege. There's going to be circumstances where you must use the root or the administrator account, particularly around vendors who demand installation of their products using an admin account. If those accounts have to be used, let's track it. Let's record that session. Let's put a boundary, a Chinese wall as to what they can do with that account. And then let's audit afterwards. Have they done exactly what they are meant to do, what they said they would do? Privilege management on network devices. How do we enable least privilege on a device that can't have an agent installed? BeyondTrust can do that. Here we're talking about the Ciscos, the IoT devices, anything that's connected to the network. They're all privileged attack vectors. They all participate in the network. Typically, these devices lack role-based access control. That's providing different people with different amounts of access on the devices. If these devices give you an account, you typically have an admin account. Privilege management in the virtual cloud. Everyone's moving to cloud. Every statistics agrees with that statement. The protection requirements of the cloud differ only by degree, not kind. There's still passwords out there. There's still credentials out there. There's still SSH keys. There's still certificates. All of these that need protecting, that should be included in management, that certainly need to be part of your reporting and visibility. Privilege in IoT, SCADAs, so on and so on. Again, these devices typically lack role-based access control. We have a solution that can enable role-based access control on these somewhat dumb terminal devices in the network that still present a risk to the organization if compromised. Privilege automation for DevOps. Again, a very exciting area of IT at the moment, automation, and certainly DevOps. When an environment is in constant change of flux, new systems are being spun up every minute, being shut down, new accounts created. Any PAM tool needs to be open and flexible enough to support orchestration tools, the ability to onboard devices, onboard accounts for protection and tracking and auditing. Privilege management unification. Here we're speaking to a single platform that can amalgamate these data from your least privileged tools, from your privileged account tools, from your vulnerability management systems. Can we send all this data into a SIEM device at the same time? Can we report this data back to an IAM device? Can we validate tasks and access versus ITSM solutions? Ultimately, that's what that management unification speaks to. Third-party integration. Again, something I just covered now. Ultimately, upstream identity and access management solutions, downstream SIEM and ITSM devices. Privilege auditing and recovery, really straightforward. Tools that one can alert of an audit, or alert of a change, and with the ability to roll back that change in the event of a problem. These are the golden tickets, the pass, the hash, the changes to Active Directory you're not aware of. Finally, identity and access management integration. This is a very exciting space, particularly with the integrations into PAM. The synergies that we're beginning to see now involve SCIM, that we can dynamically and real time provide access to devices and accounts, and also remove access immediately at the time. This talks to just-in-time access, vendors, third parties, and the like. So to wrap this up in the last couple of minutes, I really wanted to introduce who BeyondTrust is. We provide a complete, integrated, intelligent, privileged access management solution. We have 30 years experience in the industry now, and that's across 20,000 customers. We have many security firsts. We've introduced a lot of technology into the sector. All of the research giants agree. Gartners, the Forresters, Cupping and Cole, that BeyondTrust is a market leader in this space. Why do customers keep coming to us? Ultimately because of quick and fast time to value. Our solutions are simple. Whilst they solve a complex problem, they're simple and intuitive. Our appliance-based model can have a global privileged access management system up and running, ready to protect assets in a matter of days. They say the technology exists today. It's the people in the process that now need development and attention. Really, this means for an organization, quick time to value. The sunk cost, the capital costs in investing in a program like this can often take months, even years to roll out in an organization. Quick time to value seems to be very important for all of our customers. Breadth of portfolio. Because of our broad expanding products and solutions, we're able to solve the big problems of our customers, whether they be right from the least privileged endpoint right to the most critical of assets, whether they be in-cloud, IoT devices, outliers that are just difficult to manage. We didn't know that we could manage them. At the same time, our products can run independently of each other if we need to solve just a small piece of the PAM, ultimate PAM umbrella. Integrations. It's great having a bunch of products, but if they don't talk to the rest of the ecosystem in any organization today, really we're lacking value. We'll be talking about our products to our products, other products to our platform, other vendors into BeyondTrust. And more importantly, integration into a customer's workflow, into their processes, into their procedures. Deployment choices. Certainly, customers are wanting the freedom to deploy the product in any state and version, degree, to why they're comfortable and wherever they land in the PAM, privileged access management journey today. Whether it be on-prem, in the cloud, a hybrid solution, least privilege on a small set of servers, all of these components and deliverables, deployment options are available. Finally, these are the three silos that we see. These are the areas of excellence that we'd love to talk to you more about. Privilege and password and session management. Wherever a customer might land on this map, they can move left and right, up or down. Endpoint privilege management. Let's get the local admins back to standard user rights without impacting productivity, elevating tasks, not users. Finally, secure remote access. Again, how do we control the third parties, the contractors, those outsiders of our organization accessing critical components inside the organization? Thank you for having me all. Thanks, Chris. Well done.